It's a mistake to think of God only as transcendent. We also have to see that through His Spirit, God is with us. He is present. There is an immanence to God. So God, being truly infinite, is also involved in the finite world. Otherwise, He would not be infinite. Because if He's infinite, He must also somehow include the finite world within Himself. How does God do this? Pettenberg says, yes, God in His essence is transcendent. But in His Spirit is a force field of spirit that undergirds all of material reality. So in that sense, all of material reality that we see, the beautiful creation here in Seattle with the mountains, with Mount Rainier, with the plants, with the beauty of nature, percolating up through the Spirit. The Spirit is undergirding all of physical reality. And physical reality comes up out of that Spirit as Spirit creates the forms of the natural world in which we live. So we, in that sense, live and move within God, as Acts 17 says, in whom, through the Spirit, I would add, we live and move and have our being. Pannenberg says the Spirit of God is that fountain out of which creation flows. So where do we find God? Do we have to look off into the far nether regions of the universe, way past Orion, in some place in the farthest regions? Oh no. Oh no. Lo, He is here, even here with us, as the Spirit permeates reality. Now some of you are saying, are you talking like a New Ager? Does that sound like New Age theology here? Oh no. I am an enemy of New Age teaching. When New Age teaching says that we are divine, oh no, we are created human beings. We are created order. The material world is a created world. God is the eternal one. The New Agers make a mistake, just like their Hindu forerunners, by saying that we are a spark of the divine. We are not a spark of the divine. That would make us God, worthy of worship. No, God in His essence is different from the created order. However, this should not stop us from realizing that God's Spirit is everywhere. God is omnipresent. God's Spirit is that underlying reality out of which creative worlds arise, the planets, the stars, and the sun. So when we look out at nature, it should take us to see the God who is ever present. There is that immanence in God. And I think for too long in my journey, I spent so much time objectifying God, the God who was out there, analyzing what are His doctrines, what are His teachings, what are His laws. And now I'm beginning to sense and see and perceive that God is closer to us than we are to our own souls through His Spirit. Wasn't it Augustine? For all of his faults, if you read the Confessions, you'd have to admit that Augustine understood something when he said that he knew, even as a young boy being rebellious, that God was guiding him on this journey of his own toward where he finally found himself in faith, with faith in Christ. That it was a journey for him too. And he says that along that time, along that journey, God, you were always there with me, closer to me than I am to my own soul, revealing and opening yourself up to me throughout the journey of life. He also says in one place that at one point he ran in his early days of coming to understand God and read the Bible. In the very early days, he ran to the plants. He ran to the tree and he said, "Tree, are you God? Are you the Lord?" And the tree said back to him, "Oh no, we are not God. We are not a spark of the divine. You will have to look elsewhere." So Augustine writes, then he went to the sun and the moon, and he said, Are you divine? Are you God?" And they said to me, No, we are not God. You have to look elsewhere. And he ran to religion, and he ran to doctrine, and he ran to dogma, much like I did in my early days, saying, are you the perfect image? Are you God? Are you the divine dogma? And I can hear them all saying to me, no, no, there is a journey yet ahead. There is more to be found. God is that one who is beyond these things. He is revealing himself to you. Trust him in faith. Do not try to quantify or objectify God. Listen to the still small voice as it speaks to you. And with God's grace and help, I continue to look for that still small voice, to listen to it, and to seek these things. Now, there are a few scientists, and you can look them up on the internet, who also are in dialogue with the Bible and with religion, seeking points of contact and correlation. Some of them are Oxford and Harvard. We could give you a list of their names, Bolingbroke and Primrose, and there are several. But one of them out of the University of Tulane is Dr. Tipler. Dr. Tipler is a futurologist, a physicist. I do have one of his books here, Frank Tipler. It's called The Physics of Christianity. The Physics of Christianity. Because Dr. Tipler is a physicist. But he has also become a believer. And he's also dialogued with theologian Dr. Pannenberg. But he's done it from the point of view of physics. And he's come to the conclusion that physics demonstrates, taking Einsteinian physics and working with Stephen Hawking's idea, that if you take physics seriously, it definitely leads to the eventual revelation of an ultimate mind in the universe, a mind of grace and love, that you cannot explain the Big Bang, you cannot account for change and the movement of the universe without there being some kind of designer, some kind of intelligence that is directing it, that is calling it to itself, that God has a way of reaching into space and time and directing events, inspiring events to bring a final eschaton toward the omega point. So Tipler writes about the omega point, how we're moving from the alpha to the omega point, and he does it in scientific language. Now, those of you who are far more gifted than I am in mathematics and science may find this a very interesting avenue of exploration. I encourage you to look into Tipler, especially his latest book, The Physics of Christianity, in which he believes that physics can show that eventually the mind of God will develop as the Spirit percolates up through material reality, inspiring individuals, leading us in science, leading us in medicine, to acquire a greater and greater understanding of how mind works and how it can be elevated to higher and higher levels of understanding that will reach back into space and time and identify every human being who has ever lived and will bring them back to communicate with everyone in a future life. That there is a great meaning and purpose throughout human history, as human history becomes the avenue through which the divine Spirit is revealing itself in greater and greater degrees of perfection. The problem is there are powers of evil that are always resisting this revelation of the Spirit. Powers of arrogance, powers of sin. Paul speaks of the principalities and powers that fight against Christ and the revelation of God. There's a battle going on. It's a process. Yes, in faith we know the victory is certain, and that the time will come when the Christ will deliver up the kingdom to the Father so that God will be all in all. But there are battles, and all of us are called to be God's warriors, to join in any way we see where that is necessary. You may see injustice